And good evening, everybody. It is May 31st, 2023. It is Wednesday, the last day of the month. Not a ton going on in sports today, but there's still things to talk about. We got an NBA Finals to preview that starts tomorrow. We got some soccer recap. We had a European Final today. Some college football news came out today with some kickoff times released. It's going to be probably a little bit of a shorter show since there isn't much to talk about. I pushed off the Stanley Cup Final preview to Friday's episode because Game 1 is on Saturday. It just seems easier that way. So, let's just get into it. NBA Finals. The Celtics did not do it. They lose in Game 7 to Miami Heat, and might be one of the most funny ways possible. Going down 3-0. Coming back to force a Game 7. Everybody's talking about how you're going to become most likely the first team ever in the NBA to come back from a 3-0 deficit. And then you just absolutely get blown out in Game 7. It was the Miami Heat teams that we saw games 1-3 that showed up Game 7. There was a lot of talk about the refs and how the Heat don't win games by those refs. But it didn't really matter. The Heat they looked like they knew that they needed to win this from the second the ball tipped off, and they were off and running as soon as that ball was tipped. I'm not 100% surprised by it. I knew that Heat team had to show back up eventually. It was just a matter of time if it was going to show up in Game 5 or Game 4, Game 5, Game 6, or Game 7. I figured that they'd close it out. I didn't think that they would be the team to blow a 3-0 lead. I know I mentioned when both teams were up 3-0 that, it's never happened before. And I said of the two teams, it would probably be the Celtics because the Lakers just looked run out. But I didn't really think either team would be the team to be the 1 in 150 now. But, we got an NBA Finals to look forward to. I think this is an intriguing Finals. I know, the people on Twitter are like, oh, this is going to be like a terrible, drawing Finals for ratings. If you're not a media executive, you shouldn't be caring about the ratings. The ratings don't matter to you. You are not the one paying out the money to decide, what networks getting rights for the games. You are not the one doing that. You don't need to care about ratings. These are the best two teams that the NBA has to offer right now. You can say, both teams, especially the Heat. The Heat just got hot at the right time, but the Nuggets were the best team in the West all season. There's no doubting that, especially after the performance they put on in the playoffs. There was no doubting that. They were that much better than everybody else in the West. I keep saying, and I don't know, a lot of people don't listen to me. The NBA regular season doesn't matter, therefore seeding in the playoffs doesn't matter. I think that's directly associated with what we just saw with the Heat. This whole playoff, they are not an 8 seed. They're not this scrappy underdog that came out of nowhere and is now in the NBA Finals. They're not that. They have Jimmy Butler, maybe one of the best playoff players of all time, on their team, carrying them to the finals. I think this playoffs has proven that the regular season doesn't matter. It already didn't when you have players sitting out games for load management. I get it, but come on. They matter, but they don't. And I think that's basically been proven that seeding does not matter. Anybody can beat anyone at any time. With the Cavs-Knicks series, they were 4-5. The Knicks did not look like a 5. And the Cavs did not look like a 4. The Cavs looked like a 7 seed, and the Knicks looked like a 2. So seeding doesn't really matter in my mind. So I don't really, the Heat are the first 8 seed to make the final since the 99 Knicks. That doesn't do anything for me, to be honest. It doesn't. But I think this is going to be a really entertaining series. Now, I said that about the other 2 series, and I said, both of them are going to go 6 or 7 games. So one of them went 7, but probably shouldn't have. The other one went 4. I think this has the potential of being either a sweep or being a 7-game series. The thing I worry about the most right now, the Nuggets have been sitting since last Monday. It's going to be, 10, 11 days since they've played, 12 days. That is going to be very interesting to watch come tomorrow night. See that rest versus rust. Because to a point, you want to have rest. But, when you're getting to 10 to 12 days off, that's rust. And it's going to be interesting to see if that Nuggets team can overcome that and make it more look like rest than rust. But I feel like they're going to come out and look like rust because you can practice all you want. Practicing is fine, but it's nothing like playing in a game. Now, of course, you can also say, well, the Heat just played a 7-game series. Now, fatigue is a topic of discussion here, and that's a very valid point. There's a very good chance game 1 might be an absolutely terrible game, with one team being on a 12-day break and the other one just coming off a 7-game series. Very good chance that that's possible. I think the Nuggets are the team to beat right now, I think. This Nuggets team has not surprised me. They've really looked good all playoffs, and congrats to them. First NBA Finals in their history. They're obviously looking for their first title. Miami Heat looking for their 4th. Another big thing that needs to be talked about here is Pat Riley. I know some people say he hasn't done a ton, with this team, obviously. He's the president or GM or both. But what he's done in a career is just absolutely outstanding. This is I believe they said he's over his career from his playing career to now, basically. So this late 60s, early 70s to now. In NBA history, he's played in a third or played or coached or, managed in a third of the NBA Finals. That's absolutely amazing. That's just unheard of. That's Montreal Canadiens, from the 50s to the 90s playing in a third of the Stanley Cups. I don't know if that's a real stat. It feels like it. It's probably a little bit more than a third for the Canadiens, but that's just unheard of and just shows his longevity in the league. Like I said, I think this is going to be an interesting series. Does it go 6 or 7? I think so. I'd be shocked if it goes 4 or 5. And if it goes 4 or 5, I think it's going to be the Nuggets that would be the one winning. I think they overcome that rust and just look like the team that beat the Lakers, basically. I'm not convinced of it, though. That's why I think we're going 6 or 7. But like I said, I think this Nuggets team is the team to beat, and I think they'll be the ones walking away with the Larry O'Brien trophy at the end of this, and they will be celebrating their first NBA title. Jimmy Butler's going to have to put on 4, outstanding games. Obviously not in a row. It can be in a row, but he's going to need to put 4 outstanding games for the Heat to win this. I think that fatigue is going to set in, and I just don't think they can get there. I think this is the Nuggets' year. Game 1 tomorrow night, like I said, I think that's probably going to be the worst of however many games they play, just because one team's coming off a Game 7 and another is coming off, 12 days rest. It's going to be an interesting series to watch, like I said. Excited to watch it. Hopefully it does go 7 games. It's always more entertaining when you have a long series, but we'll see what happens with it. So, some news today coming out of college football. Week 1 through 3 and then some other games. Their kickoff times were released. Just kind of want to go through some of them like that, made news today. Some of these were previously released, but I feel like it's just a good time to kind of get a look ahead of what we're looking at in late August, early September of some, important games. So we'll actually start off with week 0 because I kind of forget that it's a thing sometimes, but we have Notre Dame and Navy. They're playing in Dublin, Ireland. That game's at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, not British Standard Time. That's going to be a Notre Dame probably easy win. This Navy team I don't think will be good at all. But, that's going to be your game that's kicking off your college football season. So, I'm sure a lot of people will be tuned in, because it's the game to kick off the season. The only really other notable game that weekend is San Jose State at USC, and that's an 8 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff on the Pac-12 network. That's only notable because Caleb Williams is playing, see if he can defend his Heisman. There's no really other games. If you want to watch Hawaii at Vanderbilt, that's a game on TV. But there's really no other major important games. So officially week 1 will start on Thursday, the August 31st slate. We got a few somewhat interesting games here. You got Nebraska at Minnesota kicking off the Big Ten season. That game's at 8 p.m. on Fox. And counter to that on ESPN is Florida going to Salt Lake City to play Utah. That's also an 8 p.m. kickoff. 2 very interesting games because obviously you have Nebraska starting the Matt Rule era against a Minnesota team that's going to be absolutely terrible this year. I think they have 2 returning starters, or at least it feels like, because everybody that left has been there for what feels like 20 years. This Minnesota team's not going to be good. They will be lucky if they get to 5 wins, I'd say. And then the Florida-Utah game, I think 2 teams that are going to have high expectations going into the year, maybe more so Utah than Florida. But, Florida got the win in Gainesville last year on week 1. So it's going to be interesting to see how playing in Salt Lake City, if it's going to affect the game, obviously. See if Utah can make that home field advantage their advantage and come out with the win and split the series, basically. For Thursday's slate, there's nothing else really outstanding. If you want to watch Kent State at UCF, that game's a 7 p.m. kickoff on FS1. NC State is going to the Rent and playing UConn. I believe that's a 7:30 kickoff on CBS Sports Network. If you want to watch that, you can. UConn's an interesting situation, obviously, independent for football, Big East for everything else because the Big East doesn't sponsor football. They won 6 games last year and went to a bowl game. Do I think they can do it again this year? I think their schedule sets up well for them to win 6 games again. I think they can go to a bowl game again. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but I think it sets up well for them. I know the discussions with the Big 12 and all that is going on. I think independent is your way to go. I know you're giving up a lot of money, football side, because football is the one that makes the money, but are you really going to sacrifice all your success in your other sports now because the football team can make money and go 2-10 in a different conference when you could be an independent and go 6-6, have control of your own schedule, basically? I believe UConn is 50-50 partners with the state of Connecticut on Rensselaer Field in East Hartford. They have a gap from the beginning of October, so like October 1st to October 24th, I think, of them being on the road or bye weeks for them. And what are we going to use the stadium for? They're hosting an international friendly between the U.S. men's national team and Germany during that time. So I think independent is the way to go for UConn. It just seems to be working out for them. So I think you got to stick with it, at least for now. So let's move to Friday. We have 5 games on the schedule for Friday. We'll just go through all 5 of them because there's not a lot. To kick off your Friday at 6:30 p.m., you have Howard at Eastern Michigan at the Factory in Ypsilanti, the gray turf. That is what it is. It's FBS, FCS game. Not going to really expect much. 7 p.m. on the ACC network. It's the Battle of the Miamis as Miami, Ohio travels down to Miami, Florida to face the Hurricanes. That's just going to be a fun game to watch because it's the Battle of Miami. I don't think Miami, Ohio wins the game, but it's still a fun thing to talk about. 7 p.m. on FS1, it is Central Michigan at Michigan State. Once again, a Michigan State team that's probably not going to be good this year. But, it's a game that will be on TV. If you want something other than that, Louisville is playing Georgia Tech at 7:30 p.m. This one's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so it is not at Bobby Dodd Stadium. I feel like that's kind of weird, but I don't know. It feels weird to me. That's not a game you really move to a neutral site. It's not really a name that's gonna, push the wantingness of tickets up. But that's their decision, so it is what it is. And finally, your nightcap. We're going to the islands. Stanford is playing at Hawaii, 11 p.m. kickoff, CBS Sports Network. What else can you say other than it's going to be fun to watch? We love Hawaii football here. Hawaii football is always your nightcap. You always root for the over. Just Hawaii football is Hawaii football, if you know what I mean. Hoping for a bounce back year. They went 4-9 last year, I believe. Maybe 3-10. Because they play 13 games because they play on the island. It was a rough year, but that was expected. So, hoping for a bounce back year 2 of Timmy Chang era. And yeah, maybe they get a win. Maybe they get a P5 win because Stanford is not good at all. They're not going to be good again this year. So, gotta remember, I believe this is their first game without David Shaw since Harbaugh left. So that's 12 years, I believe. Now we're on to Saturday. Obviously, the big day. You have Colorado at TCU, Deion Sanders era, that kicks off at 12 p.m. on Fox, so that's your big noon kickoff. The news that's making waves today: East Carolina at Michigan. That is going to be a noon kickoff. That's on Peacock. That is the first Peacock exclusive game ever. Surely Michigan's never played their first game on Labor Day weekend against a team from North Carolina on a network that not a lot of people have. Surely that's never happened before. Surely not. You have Virginia at Tennessee. That game's in Nashville. That's also a noon kickoff on ABC. If we're being honest, looking at the week 1 schedule, there's not a lot of good games. There's a few, 3 or 4. But it is a very weak week 1 schedule this year. You have Boise State at Washington. Washington's going to be a top 15 team to start the season. That's a 3:30 kickoff on ABC. It is what it is. Ohio State at Indiana. That's a 3:30 kickoff on CBS. So that's the first game of the CBS contract with the Big Ten. That game is going to probably not be great. Rice at Texas, that's a 3:30 game on Fox. Some of these games, like they obviously just picked them because it's filler for their contract, but they're not going to be good games. I mean, we're just scraping the barrel here, I feel, for games. West Virginia at Penn State, that's the first game of the NBC contract. That's a 7:30 kickoff. Texas Tech at Wyoming, that's a 7:30 kickoff on CBS. That is interesting. The Duke's Mayo Classic, North Carolina versus South Carolina, that's in Charlotte. That's the 7:30 kickoff on ABC. Now we're getting into the nightcap. I mean, they are really scraping the barrel here for these like 10:30 games. I mean, you have Sam Houston State in their first game in the FBS at BYU. That's a 10:15 kickoff on FS1. And you have Coastal Carolina at UCLA, so at the Rose Bowl. That's a 10:30 kickoff on ESPN. So no real good like late night game to start your college football season on the Saturday. Can't really say you expected it. And then Sunday, usually it's only one game. This year we have 3. So your noon game, this is going to be on CBS. It's Northwestern at Rutgers. It's kind of just laughable to me because that's just we need a team to throw on CBS. Give me Northwestern and Rutgers. That's a sickos game of the year watch game, I would say. Then after that, you have another sickos game of the year watch. Oregon State at San Jose State. That's a 3:30 kickoff on CBS. And the nightcap is the game that is probably the game of the week. It is LSU versus Florida State. That game's in Orlando. That's the 7:30 kickoff on ABC. Both teams are probably going to be at least top 15, most likely top 10 teams to start the season. So that's going to be a top 10 battle. I think both teams are overrated going into the year. I think Florida State more than LSU, but it should still be an entertaining game like it was last year. I mean, I believe the final score was 22-21. That game was at the Superdome. It really sucks that these two teams did 2 neutral site games instead of on-campus games. On-campus games are much better. And then your Monday game, this shocked me when I saw it. I think this was announced earlier, and I just completely forgot it. It's always an ACC game or featuring an ACC team. And this year, it's Clemson at Duke is your Labor Day game, 8 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. And when I saw this, I'm like, okay, this game's got to be like in Charlotte or something. Why would Duke be hosting the Monday night Labor Day game? Nope. This is in Durham. This is at Wallace Wade Stadium, and I'm so confused on why this is happening, but we know it's happening because it's Duke, or not because it's Duke, because it's Clemson. It's going to be an interesting year for Clemson. Cade Klubnik is going to be the starting quarterback now. He's very much called for at the end of the year against DJ Uyunglele, who's now at Oregon State. There's a few interesting games there, obviously, like I said. But, I mean, we'll see. We're still far away, so these will be previewed again sometime soon. Other news today coming out of college football. The bowl schedule was released, usually get some interesting tidbits here. And really the only interesting thing that came out today is the death of the Cheez-It Bowl. The Cheez-It Bowl is dead. It lived a somewhat short, somewhat long life. It was 2017, I believe, was the first year. It was in Phoenix. It had a good 3-year run there, and then it moved to Orlando. And then we got 2 Cheez-It Bowls. We got the Cheez-It Bowl and the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Well, the Cheez-It Bowl is dead and has been replaced with the Pop-Tart Bowl. Yes, this is real. The Pop-Tart Bowl is real. So the Cheez-It Bowl is dead. Long live the Pop-Tart Bowl. We are very excited for the Pop-Tart Bowl. We very much endorse Pop-Tarts here. No free ads, though, because I don't think that's allowed. But Pop-Tart Bowl is here to stay. at least for 2 or 3 years, and then we'll get some other Kellogg's brand. Maybe we'll get the Cornflakes Bowl. I don't know. But yeah, RIP to the Cheez-It Bowl. I'm thinking of you, Prince Chedward. I'm sure you're moving to the Citrus Bowl, but still, it's a sad day to see the Cheez-It Bowl dead. But it's a very glad day to see the Pop-Tarts Bowl born. Let's do Europa League Final review. We talked about it on Monday. I'm wearing Eintracht Frankfurt. This is from last year's Europa League Final. Sevilla win their 7th Europa League UEFA leagues, or UEFA Cup / Europa League. It's the Europa League. 7th overall. I mean, absolutely insane. Jose Mourinho's first loss in a European final. He was not thrilled after the game. A lot of talk about the refs, and, you know, he has a point on some of the calls, but some of them were also, they were needed. But this was an absolutely disgusting game of football. Absolutely disgusting. You 100% expected it. I told you on Monday this is going to be a draw and we're going to penalties and Sevilla probably win it. Look what happened. Roma got the lead early. I believe it was somewhere in the 15th, 20-minute range. And they parked the bus immediately after that. They had the tempo to go up 2 or 3. They didn't. They parked the bus. It ends up being an own goal for Sevilla, or for Roma, technically. 10 minutes into the second half. And then you have two teams that just parked the bus, and it fell apart from there. It just got so disgusting. You were just praying for the end to come when it was like the 65th minute, and you knew you were in for another hour because this game was just going to absolutely drag out. So we mercifully get to extra time. It just gets even worse from there. Oh my gosh, it got so bad. We ended up having, in the second period of extra time, it was 6 added on minutes. We played until like the 133rd minute. Just an absolutely awful game. It should have just went straight to penalties after the full-time whistle after 90. But that's not the rules in soccer / football. You got to play 30, and then you play penalties. Sevilla convert 4 out of their 5 penalties. Their 4th penalty was the one that was missed and went off the post. That's how it went. And Roma, they make their first. The save the second went off the leg while he was diving the other way. Absolutely amazing save. 3rd went off the post. And I believe 4th also went off the post. Both defenders, too, that missed. They only took 3 because they missed. They made the first one. Second one went off the leg, diving the other way. 3rd went off the post. Sevilla's 4th penalty originally went off the post. VAR review, good old, the box, that not offsides, but we retake the penalty because the goalkeeper was off the line and that's considered infringement. So we move on. We take the penalty again. It's converted. Sevilla win. Like I said, this was absolutely a disgusting game of football. I'm very glad it's over. Like I said, disgusting. It was one of the football games of all time. It was the most Europa League final of all time with the way that it was played. It was just, like I said, disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But that's the way they play. So congrats to Sevilla. They win their 7th, just like their last 6, basically. So big congrats to them. They're 11th in La Liga right now, and they'll be playing Champions League football next year. The cycle continues. Let's do a quick kick around the pitch. Nothing really huge happening today. Karim Benzema looks to be headed to Saudi Arabia. The Real Madrid striker has been there since 2009. On the last legs of his career, looks like he's going to get one more payday in Saudi Arabia at Al Ittihad, the team that won the Saudi League this year, coached by Nuno Espirito Santo. Question is, who replaces him now? Top of the list, it sounds like right now for Real Madrid is Harry Kane, which why wouldn't he be? He's the best striker in the world. He's got a year left on his contract, so it should be somewhat easy of a payday, but you're also dealing with Daniel Levy. So we'll see what happens there. Tottenham side, there's no real news on managers, just the Australian that's at Celtic that I don't want to butcher his name because I will butcher his name. It sounds like he's top of the list right now, and we're not talking to him until after the Scottish Cup final on Saturday, which, whatever, but there's so many better options. Marcelo Gallardo, the River Plate manager that resigned in December just because he wanted a new opportunity. I believe he's in London just sitting there. I'd rather have him than Agnes Pacologo or something like that. That is the Australian. I'd rather have Gallardo. I think he can do wonders, but I have a feeling this team won't even interview him, so doesn't really matter. Like I said, this is going to be a short show today because there's not really much going on. Like, the only sports on right now are MLS, and not much. So, final thing I want to talk about, Ted Lasso ended last night. There will be no spoilers here. I will tell you that. So you do not have to turn off. Because I'm mostly going to go kind of my final thoughts on the season, final thoughts on the series, but not really going into great detail because I don't want to be the person that spoils it for people. Final thoughts on the season. We'll start there. This season was absolutely terrible. Absolutely awful. This show fell off a cliff. There were last season, so season 2, 12-episode season, there were 3 episodes, I believe, that were like filler episodes. This season felt like there were 10 filler episodes, and 11 and 12 were the last 2, and even then, those sucked. There were just... This season was so bad. So bad. I don't even know where to start. We had so many unnecessary storylines. So many things that would have been huge storylines in the show that happen off camera, and you're just led to guess what happened. See, it's kind of hard to talk about them because there are major spoilers. So just absolutely terrible season. Final thoughts on the show overall. I've told some people I have compared this show to the Titanic, and I stick by that. Season 1, it's the ship that's never going to sink. It's absolutely amazing, absolute cinema. Should win everything. The ship will never sink. It's the greatest thing to happen to mankind. Season 2, you hit the iceberg. There's nothing really to worry about yet. But, the ship is starting to take on water. You're going to have to do something if you don't want to sink. Season 3, we have the ship is tilting. The ship is breaking. The people are playing the violins that near, my God, to the... That one. And then the ship sinks. The people are scattered everywhere. There's lots of crying. That's season 3. Absolute train wreck. The show is sank. I'm in the very minority here because who knows? Maybe I'll have people in the comments of this. Oh, you're so wrong. This show is just the pinnacle of excellence. No, it's not. This show was absolutely terrible. Power of friendship. Cool. That's not what I came here for. The show was sold as a show about an American football coach going to England and coaching a Premier League team. Half of season 3, you don't even remember that there's a football team involved. They lost the plot of the show. I'd say they lost the plot of the show 2 episodes into season 2. But, I mean, we're at the end. There's going to be a spinoff because the show's so successful, because people are like deluded in the mind that this was just an absolutely outstanding show. It wasn't. Maybe I'm just like completely off the rails here because I was expecting something else. This show was awful. It was cringe 95% of the time. The only good episodes were in season 1. And okay, maybe if we look at the top 5 episodes of the show, 4 of them are in season 1, 1 of them's in season 2, 0 of them in season 3. I still have the Richmond. I put up the Richmond scarf today because I felt like it needed to be there just for this. The show could have been so much better done. I have a feeling the spinoff's not going to be better. Because, like I said, I'm guaranteeing there's a spinoff coming. The show had so much potential, and you really saw that after season 1, and it just completely lost the plot, if we're honest. It lost the plot, and there was nowhere to go from there, to be honest. So, I think we're going to wrap it up there today after that long-winded rant about a show that everybody thinks is a cultural masterpiece. That's not. So, you know what? Thanks for watching. Maybe people will get mad in the comments, but hey, you watched. So, as the Pete Weber said, hate me or love me, you watched. So, thanks for watching. Like I said, short show today. We're going to have a lot to talk about on Friday because we'll have sports back on our TVs. Have a good night. We'll see you on Friday, and should be an